Great to see everybody today. Over the last week, we've been working on our half guard module. We're going to finish things up with our half guard module tonight. I want to just quickly refresh your memory about what the half guard is, when we use it, and of course what we did last class. So our half guard is, for all intents and purposes, a negative guard. Guard is always a good thing, but the half guard itself does not provide us with the same distance management and framing skills available to allow us to really control our opponent. So as beginners, we see the half guard as you are halfway to getting your guard passed. Meaning we don't want to hang out there for too long, right? So what we looked at last class was on using our frames to allow us to reset to our closed guard. Tonight, we're going to do the same sort of drill for our warm-up. However, we're going to be using our frames to rebuild to a good half guard position. And from there, we'll of course reset back to our closed guard position. So the problem that we're looking at tonight is that we were not able to initially build our frames for the half guard. Our opponent was able to flatten us out. So one thing that we want to be clear with is that the half guard can actually be a very powerful passing position. If the top person is able to flatten you out, the half guard, you've essentially lost control of the position. You don't really have many attacks from there. So we got to learn how to rebuild our frames and, of course, get back to the closed guard. So that's what we're going to look at for our warm-up. Let's check it out. So, John, I'll borrow you, sir. Alrighty, guys. So we're starting from the bottom of the half guard. So remember, my partner's on one leg. I'm going to cross my legs around that. I always turn in to face my opponent. And my top priority here is to block the cross face. So I want to block the arm that he would use to reach and grab my head. Now, this is what we worked on last class. From here, we used a slight movement to get our knee in, framing with our feet, and then we pulled into our closed guard. However, the issue that we're going to run into tonight is that we've been flattened out. So we could look at a number of different ways that our opponent flattens us. Maybe it's double unders, maybe it's a crossface. Let's start with a crossface here. So he's got me flattened, he has crossface, underhook. This is a really bad situation. Again, because we're here, my half guard is essentially worthless. I can't really mount any sort of attack, so we need to rebuild our frames. So I'm going to show very slowly how we're going to rebuild from this position, and then we'll break it down. Here we go. So now I'm back into a more controlled half guard position with my frames. So all we're thinking about here, guys, is when we're flattened on our back, our objective is to pummel our arms back to an inside position and get back onto our side. That's going to allow us to create a leg press configuration with our legs and eventually put them back into a closed guard. So this could take the form of any pinning position for the top person. So maybe he has a crossface underhook like we did in the first example, or maybe he has double unders. Now, in this situation, same thing. My objective is to start to pummel my arms and get back to this inside position. Once I have my arms back in this inside position, it can be a battle to get onto your side. So we can start to use our legs to help us get there. I'll demonstrate that in a moment from the other angle, but once I can use this to help me stretch out, now I have my leg press, I'm ready to start to get back to my closed guard. So for this drill, I'm going to have one person starting just flat on your back. We're still going to get that half guard with our legs. Top person, though, I want you to get to a pin. So you can either go head-arm control for a crossface, or you can go double unders. Let's go head-arm control here, Mr. John. So he's going to crossface underhook. So again, I'm flat. This sucks. I made a mistake, so I got to get back to safety. So the first thing we're probably going to need to use is this arm to pummel underneath his chin. Now, I'm going to start to get onto my side as I pummel my arms to the inside position. So I'm kind of using my hand to sneak underneath his armpit and touch my face. If I can touch my face, I'm able to start to get my frames. Now notice how I'm still flat. If he's really pushing down hard, I can't just roll over. So what I'm going to need to do is use my opposite foot to help me get onto my side. So I can start to scoot my hips out. Maybe I use my knee to start to act as a frame. Maybe if I'm flexible enough, I can just start to step on the hip. Either way, I need to start to use that chest escape that we looked at last class, where I push my chest away from my opponent. Now that I'm here, immediately I block the crossface, reinforce with my leg press, and now we're ready to simply extract and get back to your closed guard. Okay, let's look one more time. Let's start with double unders this time. So maybe he has double unders on me. Okay, we're in half guard. Again, this is a little bit easier with double unders because I have more range of motion with my arms. I can move around more. So again, from here, I start to get my frames in, start to pummel, get to my inside position, and look how I used my hips to kind of move back a little bit. I'm kind of pushing him down away from me, getting my arms in. And now look, I start to get on my side, insert my knee, And now I can use this slight scissor motion with my legs to help me do my chest escape. But again, I'm always getting to my leg press position and looking to extract and pull back into a closed guard. So I'd like us to warm up with this. Again, top person, just pin their shoulders to the mat. Bottom person, our goal, find inside positioning to rebuild your frames and eventually get back to a closed guard. Any questions? All right, guys, let's go. 1, 2. All right, any questions on our warm-up drill here? So again, the half guard, it can be used very successfully in an offensive manner. However, it favors certain body types, and because it's not quite as universal of a distance management type of guard, we don't like using it as a sort of beginner-friendly guard. It's inherently not a beginner-friendly guard. You are halfway to getting your guard passed. So we like to use the half guard either as an escape tool to get back and out of a negative bottom position, or as a guard recovery tool. For example, maybe I'm in the bottom of the mount. I can utilize the half guard to start to escape. And now from here, just like we learned, I can start to extract and get back to a more dominant guard position. However, like we looked at on Tuesday, the half guard can still have some offensive capabilities, such as using the underhook to start to come up and take our opponents back. Like we looked at last class too, though, the half guard is an absolutely essential battle that occurs in the half guard sort of situation. If my opponent gets the underhook, pretty much done. If I can get the underhook, I have some semblance of attacks. So, like we looked at last class, from our half guard, I have my strong framing structure set up. If I can use my underhook to build up into a strong sit-up position, I can start to use that arm to shuck, open out my knee, and from here, we looked at a back attack where I go chest to spine, I start to underhook his back heel, and from this position, I create internal rotation on his knee, dropping him to his shoulder, and taking the back. Again, this is a good option that we can be on the lookout for. However, there is an issue that we can run into. If as I'm looking for that underhook, my opponent utilizes a whizzer or a tight overhook, they can deny me access to the back. What would that look like? Maybe I'm playing half guard, everything's looking good, and I think to myself, you know what? I want to take this dude's back. I'm going to sit up, boom, I get that nice underhook, but my opponent, they've whizzered my arm. Now, this is not the end of the world, okay? This is called a whizzer. It's just a tight overhook. The goal of this is to start to drive my shoulder and create internal rotation to put me back down on my back. However, because my opponent is driving so hard back down to the floor, I can use this as an attack opportunity to sweep my partner with the overhead sweep. So I'm going to demonstrate this slowly, and then we'll break it down. Okay? So again, I'll start from the beginning. I get my underhook, and I sit up. Boom. He gets the whizzer, and now I'm on top. From this position, we'll back step out, shelve their legs, and finish in a tight leg drag. So let's look at what we're doing here. This is a very simple sweep. It looks kind of fancy and acrobatic, but it's actually quite easy. All we're doing is rolling over. Okay? If I pantomime it, I'm doing this. That's it. Okay? However, there's some details that go into it. So let's take a look. So I'm here, I'm framing. I start to get my underhook. Remember, when I go underhook, I want ear to sternum, Pez dispenser into the chin, arm not accessible. We don't give them access to levers. I match his force vector with my hands behind me. From here, I'd like to take his back, however he whizzers. Once he whizzers, I'm going to give him a reason to drive into me. Right now, we're both just casually sitting here. There's no force being generated from either one of us. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to drive into him. If you catch your partner sleeping, check this out. I'm just going to roll him over. There you go. Boom. That's a non-sweep, right? We call that a false positive. That worked not because I'm good at Jiu Jitsu. It worked because this person didn't know what they were doing. We want to get away from false positives. However, I'm going to start to drive into him. Look how I'm coming up on my knee. I'm really trying to pressure into him hard, hard, hard. Not with the intention of actually knocking him over, but to get him to drive back into me. Notice how I came up onto my knee, the same way we did with our underhook back take. This position, sometimes called the dog fight, will allow us to now dive underneath our opponent's body. Because he's committed so hard to this whizzer, he's now taken away his ability to post with that arm. So I'm going to use that to my advantage. I'm driving in. When I feel him pushing back, head and hand, dive underneath, and I'm reaching my hand all the way for his far leg. I can hook the shin, I can grab the toes, I can grab the material, but I want to dive both head and hand all the way in. As soon as I do, I continue the momentum of his drive. So he's pushing in, pushing in, pushing in, and I roll over. Now, once I've come up here, notice I'm on my hip. I wouldn't score anything right now, okay? So I wouldn't receive 2 points yet. I have to come up on my knees. Notice how because I have this arm hooked around his shin, I'm denying him half guard. It's not the end of the world if I do this, but now, look what we did. We just flip-flopped. Again, I'm on my knees. I went from the bottom of the guard to the top. That's 2 points. But I'd rather not end up in half guard. So as soon as I sweep him, I'm going to keep regulated tension on the shin. You can even anchor on to your opponent's gi. You can grab their pants or their belt. But keeping regulated tension here will deny them the ability to close the half guard. Now, I'll simply start to extract my leg, and I'm going to shelve his knees. My knee comes underneath, keep tight control of his hips, and I finish in a leg drag. Remember, we don't get greedy when passing. I don't care about his head right now. I'm peeling the layers of the onion, control his hips, and then come up on top. Now you're in a really dominant passing position. Let's rewind the tape back to the beginning. So again, I'm on my back, or side, I should say. I'm playing half guard. Boom. I sit up, I get my underhook. Nice tight connection, he whizzers. No problem. I don't want to necessarily try to just pull my arm out. Okay? If I just lazily try to pull my arm out, I have the tendency to go flat. There are some things that you can do if your opponent has a really loose and lazy whizzer. We'll look at something in a second, a little extra technique. But for right now, they have a good whizzer on you. So look, I'm going to start to drive into him, give him a reason to drive back. I dive and come up on top. Look, regulated tension here on that shin. I'm now going to back step my right leg out. As soon as I do, I shelve his leg. So I get my knee underneath. Keeping his feet off the mat, I deny him base, and now I simply start to come up into leg drag with good hip control. I'll demonstrate one more time in slow motion without talking. Here we go. And let's do one more time from the rear. That way you guys can see it from a slightly different angle. Again, nice and slow, without talking. Here we go. Finishing that tight leg drag. All right, guys, does anybody have any questions on this rollover sweep? Take your time. Be sure that you're giving realistic reactions. No false positives. Don't just flop over for them. Make them drive and commit their weight. Take their momentum. Come up and get your points. Let's go. 1, 2. Walking around, I had some really good questions asked. One question was, if they keep the whizzer really, really tight, does that pose an issue? Is that a problem? So like, I sweep them, I come up on top, and they are just holding this whizzer to the death. Is this an issue? No. Now, he's not doing what he should be doing from the negative bottom position, which is framing to create space to regard. He's holding me closer to him. Perfect. If he's holding me closer, now I'll just chill here until he gives up. So he's just wasting his time, okay? Holding this whizzer is not gonna help you escape a negative bottom position. Your objective should be frame to create space. One of the key things that I was seeing as I was moving around was not so much the actual rollover. That was great, but it was the finish. Finishing in a good tight leg drag. Leg drag is one of the most dominant passing positions that we can utilize. Remember, we don't just pass the guard with movements, we pass the guard with positions. So here was what I wanted to see. There were some people who were sweeping, okay? They came up. Again, I want to get as tall as I can on that knee into this dogfight position. I'm driving in. I want to be a bully here. If he doesn't catch himself with that arm, I should knock him over. Boom. I should knock him over. But he's catching himself. So again, I feel his resistance. I dive. Some people are doing this and immediately coming up onto your knees. That's not the end of the world. You swept them. You got 2 points. But now, because my weight is on this knee, it's hard for me to extract it, and he immediately puts me in half guard. Again, half guard can be a good passing position, but why would I want to go to half guard if I have the pass available? So here's what we can do to remedy this. As I sweep him, I'm going to stay on that hip just for a moment. So I sweep. I'm going to stay on my left hip just for a moment. Let's rotate. Notice how my left toe is an active base in the direction he would drive into me. So coach, come up on top. So I have this leg, lever control here to his hip. My active foot is preventing him from coming up on top of me. But why am I staying on my hip for this moment? Well, because I'm on my hip, my right leg has no weight on it. So look how easily I can extract with a back step. Here. And now immediately I shelve, come underneath. And now I go tripod, head down, hips up, and I walk into leg drag. So this small detail can save you a whole lot of hassle. It can be frustrating to get put into a good half guard. So don't get put into a good half guard, just pass in the beginning. So that little detail, I want you guys to incorporate that. However, let's share one more technique. This is a super simple one. We're gonna kind of take that back take we did last class and combine it with this one. Okay, how's that gonna work? Well, check this out. Let's say my opponent, they have a terrible whizzer. They're just kind of hanging that hand lazily. Now, why is this not really a good thing for me? Well, if I go to try to do that rollover sweep, he might be anticipating it. He's using the whizzer to prevent the back take, but now if I try to hit that rollover sweep, he can post. And now look, if I don't have a good deep half guard, now I'm in a pretty precarious position. So if I come up, because I'm using that regulated tension, I feel that he has a bit of a loose whizzer. So look what we're gonna do. Limp arm. Okay, I'm just gonna limp arm and take his back, just like we did last class. So I'm here with my underhook. I'm still driving in, but I notice, hey, look, his hand's a little floppy. So I'm just gonna take my arm. I'm gonna pretend like I'm playing air guitar. Got him. And now look, I'm on the back, just like we worked on over the last couple weeks with our back mount module. Take the back however you want. Okay, you can climb, get your top hook. We can drop the near side shoulder, suck him into us. We can barrel roll to the other side. Or if you were with us last night, let's look for opposite corner rotational control by hooking under the heel, drop their shoulder, pull them in. Head above heel, head above head. Okay, and then from here, we can start to attack the back. Okay, guys? So let's review that rollover sweep, making sure we finish with a tight leg drag, and then you guys can also play around with this, which is taking us to the same back take we did last class. Let me demonstrate one more from this perspective. So everything's the same in the beginning. Nice and high. Okay, let me go one more time. We'll go from, we have another side view. Let's do a side view. Okay, slow motion, guys. Here we go. Doggy paddle, ready to attack the rear naked choke. All right, guys, any questions on this? Again, this is kind of a bonus technique. We're just doing what we did last class with that limp arm in the beginning. Lead with your shoulder when you limp arm. I have the underhook. If I pantomime, lead with the shoulder, limp arm. Don't make it that like grandiose, right? Just be quick with it. Boom. Get right to the back mount. All right, guys? Any questions? Let's go. 1, 2. Any questions about the rollover sweep or that limp arm back take? Additionally, we worked on rebuilding our frames for our warm-up. Very, very important, critical technique in order to reestablish control with the half guard. I wanted to show one little thing that I was noticing here, a slight little issue, guys. And the thing was, a lot of us were not limp arming the right direction. So you were encountering a false positive. Some of us were here, and the false positive was this. They threw the arm this way. Okay? What am I doing? I'm going against his overhook. We're not going against someone that weak, right? I can't disintegrate his bones and go through his arm like this. I'm limp arming in the direction where there's nothing holding it. I'm going this way, here. If I go too slow with that limp arm, look how his elbow stays in the same spot. Okay, keep your elbow in the same spot, coach. Here. Okay.
Too slow.
So look, if I go slow, his elbow stays in the same spot. Now, what's the issue? He's created a frame that'll deny me the back access. Not the end of the world, but if we create more of a movement, a high volume movement, boom, look how I whip that elbow past me. And now I go right to the back mount. Last issue here, guys, we addressed this last class, but whatever back take you choose to do, if we end up perpendicular with our opponent, okay, so we're like the letter T, I can't get the top hook very easily. So when this occurs, back foot frames the floor, I hip escape to create a chest spines connection, then the top hook can go in easily. Remember, I want to be parallel to maintain that chest to spine control. We're gonna move into some specific training rounds using the half guard next. Does anybody have any questions before we move on? All right, sweet guys, let's go ahead and grab water and we'll get to work. 1, 2.